welcome to part 5, and in this video we're going to finish the modelling and I'll be adding the vents on the side of the head and some stickers. So let's jump in. Hi everyone, hope everyone's doing well. So later on in the video I show you how I created these holes in the side of the head. So I wanted to create a very short description of how I did that because I kind of went through it quite quickly. So I'll just close this Blender file down and show you this one here, where I will show you or demonstrate two methods for doing exactly the same thing. And the first method, well, in fact the method I used in the video later on, is with the Bool Tool, and the other method is using a traditional Boolean modifier. So the Bool Tool is ultimately they do exactly the same thing. It's the same result. So anyway, head over to Preferences, Add-ons, and search for Bool, and enable it. And what that means you now can do is select this object, the cutter first, strangely enough, then select the target object, and then if you're on a PC, press Control, numpad minus, just like that. And we've now cookie cut the cube from this shape there. So if we select that shape, you can see in the modifier stack, and we've got a mirror modifier there, we can ignore that. I've got a Boolean modifier. It's called B tool. It's cube 1. But that effectively is exactly the same as it is a Boolean modifier, effectively. And I'll just demonstrate that. We're going to head over to the exact same setup here. But in this instance, you need to select the target object first, and then add the Boolean modifier to that, something like that. And then let's use our eyedropper to select the cutter. And you can see that's got an outline there, which means that has worked. Now let's disable this cube because it gets in the way now. And there you go. We've got exactly the same result. They both use the Boolean modifier. The difference is one of them is called this, the other one's called Boolean. So yeah, I wanted to explain that to you in case you found that what I did later on a little bit confusing. And feel free to use either method, whichever you prefer. So anyway, with that done, let's get back to the video. Thanks. So here we are with the robot head, and that's the part we're going to add the vents to. And I've just drawn some shapes there to illustrate what the effect is that I'm after. As always, make a backup copy. So I'll duplicate that with Shift D and move it over to the side by 1 meter. And we'll put that back once we're happy with the shape. So let's tab into edit mode and let's copy some faces that I'm going to use as a basis for the shape that I'm going to use as the cutter in the Boolean operation. So we'll separate those objects by hitting the P key into a new object. And we don't need these modifiers now for this shape, so we'll just delete all of those. Let's switch over to vertex or edge mode, whether you prefer really. So I'm going to select these back ones here, press S for scale, Y for the Y-axis, 0, enter. And that will just flatten those nicely. And select everything by pressing A, and I'm just going to switch to this for side view and wireframe. And scale these down in the Y-axis and just move them along into that area there. And at this point, hitting Control R, I'll add some loop cuts, 4 of them in fact. Now we can select these 2 middle stacks and delete those faces. Now with those deleted, we've left with 3 stacks of polygons there, faces, which is cool. So let's head over to the shear tool and hold down Control as we shear them left to right. Yes, that is cool, thank you very much. And we're going to place that just about there. That's good. And next step is to add a loop cut in the top and bottom faces. Just click and right click to leave those in the center. So Control R to add a loop cut, left click, right click, and then delete the faces on the outer edges. Cool. Now let's extrude those faces. Select everything by pressing the A key and just intersect them through the side of the head there. Right, so I used the Bool Tool for this, and as you saw it in my earlier video, to explain how that works. Let's disable the bevel and subdivision and bring that up. And ideally you want the Boolean to be above the mirror modifier, but we're going to apply that anyway, so that's fine. And having done that, I'm going to delete the cube, or that shape we created just now as the cutter. Now we've got some serious tidying up to do because the Boolean left around some erroneous vertices here and there. So we'll just, I'm selecting one vertex and the target one, press the M key, select merge at last, and then when you do the same thing next time, you can just press Shift R to repeat the last command. And finally, that's the last one there, just like that. Now, we've still got a lot of things to figure out. The next step is to add some loop cuts above, or outside and inside, and line those up with the holes that we have there. I paused the video there for a second because I think my Alexa, or someone's Alexa, turned on in the background there. I don't know what I said for that to happen, so if you did hear that, I'm sorry. Anyway, let's get back to this. Adding some loop cuts with Ctrl R, and I'm holding down the Control key as I do that so that I can snap to the vertices that I place under my mouse cursor. And of course, make sure snapping is set to vertex. And then once I've done that, I'm selecting opposite vertices and pressing the J key to join them, effectively creating edges between them. And that's much better, but we still have an end gone there and a few other places. So we're not quite out of the woods yet. It looks quite messy, right? You can see there, it doesn't look very good. So what I would do is select all of the vertices and then right click, merge vertices by distance. And that helps to clean up some of the geometry, which it has done. But unfortunately, we're still not where we want to be. It's still not quite right. We do have some nasty end-ons going on. And you can see there, that's not looking good. So the next step is to add some more loop cuts, but we also need to use the weight in the bevel modifier now, not the angle. So we'll switch to the edge mode, and I'll speed through this there again, but let's just turn off the subdivision modifier. Now select all of the leading edges around those holes that we just made. So I'll select all of the inside edges and the outside edges like that, and add a mean bevel weight of 1. And that means that will be targeted by the limit method in the bevel modifier. Yay, that looks good. So we just need to do that to all the other edges now that also need to be nicely beveled. So that would be the front ones and the back ones, and of course the seam that we made in the previous video. So let's hold down Alt and then Shift Alt to select multiple edge loops. So that's those at the front and 2 at the back. And again, mean bevel weight of 1 to target those with the bevel modifier. Let's have a look if that works. And indeed it does. Very nice indeed. Thanks, Borat. Right, now tighten up the seam edges. So I'm going to use the mean crease for that. So select those 2 inner loops and mean crease of 1. And that should do it. All we need to do now is figure out these end-ons that we have. Let's just test this is all looking good, which it is. Very nice. We've got some weird shading going on where those end-ons are, but we'll address that soon. Before I do that, let's add a couple of loop cuts in these upper and lower edges just to tighten up those corners a bit more and get a nicer shape. So click there and right click to leave them where they're generated. Now I'm going to hide the original head part, and I'm going to move this one into its place. So let's just type 0 in the X location, and I'll press the question mark key to bring that into focus. And you can see there we've got some horrible shading issues just there. So we've got a pretty bad angle on there, which kind of collapses into itself, hence the problems. So to fix that, what we need to do is add some edge loops and end up with some nice quads. So we'll press Ctrl R, click and right click to leave them there, and just connect these vertices there to create the edge by pressing J. We'll just speed through that. Same thing, 4 times. In fact, 8 times I think it was. But anyway, I digress. And that's looking better. And that should fix the shading issues, but there is another issue now in that we have irregularly, irregularly shaped or spaced vertices here. So the subdivision modifier needs a little bit of help now to even out those gaps between the parts. So what I need to do firstly is have the 3D cursor at this location. So hitting Shift S, cursor to selected. And what I want to do effectively is select some of these vertices here. And by all means, I should say, please make sure you do that in wireframe mode or X-ray mode when you select vertices. Otherwise, you won't be selecting them from at the back. So yeah. So with those selected, I just want to scale them in towards the 3D cursor, but not in the Y-axis. That's really important. And you'll see why when I do this. You can see there, it's all collapsing into itself. And the reason it's doing that is because it's scaling it in the Y-axis, front to back. We don't want that. So I want to scale it towards the 3D cursor. And I have forgotten to set it to 3D cursor, so I'll do that in a second. There we go. So 3D cursor as a transform point, and press S for scale, Shift Y to exclude the Y-axis. I'll fast forward this because it's a little bit tedious. In fact, I didn't do this perfectly, if I'm honest, but you get the drill. You just want to select some of these vertices and pull them in a little bit closer. As I said, make sure you do that in vertex mode, in wireframe or X-ray mode, and just scale Shift Y to exclude the Y-axis. And that should be all that needs to be done there. So with that, we've got some lovely vents on the side of the head. Just give it some nice detail and some nice shadows later on. That's looking pretty cool. So for making stickers, I thought I'd demonstrate it with this sphere and a plane. So you've got a sphere there divided into 64 parts and a simple plane. And what I'm going to do is add a Shrinkwrap modifier to the plane, which is effectively our sticker, and click on this UV sphere as our target object. Now the problem is we don't have enough geometry in the plane for the geometry to stay onto the surface. Even if we do above surface, it doesn't work. And that's because we need more geometry to fold around the object, right? Think of it like wrapping a present at Christmas time. So let's tab into edit mode on the sticker or plane, and let's subdivide that quite a few times. Now you can see the Shrinkwrap modifier is having some results now. It does look a bit odd, and that's because strangely we need to have the object nearer, the sticker I should say, nearer the surface we're projecting onto. So let's just bring that down. You can see that makes a big difference in the quality of the Shrinkwrap. Now to be fair, I could have probably used project as the wrap method, which I didn't try, so sorry about that. Feel free to have a go. And yeah, so that's how you make the stickers. Just make sure you have enough geometry, and that works with any shape, of course. So I'm going to quickly add a subdiv to the sphere. That will make for a tighter shrink wrap for the sticker. And that's pretty much what I do later on in the next step. Now, if you really wanted to, you can also add a solidify modifier if you wanted to make these thicker. Obviously, if it was paper, you don't have to worry too much. But if you wanted to make that, say, a metal plate or something, then give it a solidify modifier and then tidy up the shading as necessary. So you can see there I've added the solidify, but you get some odd shading. So yeah. So if you want to do that, go ahead and do that. I don't think I did that for mine, but you can always do that if you feel you need to. Right, the other thing that I did is, what about round stuff? So if I had a circle, and I'll just bring that out to the side there. Tab into edit mode, press F to fill, and back to object mode. I just raise it up and rotate it. In fact, I'm just going to copy these modifiers. So if I select the circle first and then the plane, you can press Ctrl L and copy modifiers. Very handy. Right, there you go. That's all gone a bit funky. So, and the reason for that, as I said, the orientation of the object you're shrink wrapping is key in this operation. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. We can't see it, unfortunately. And if I move it closer towards the sphere, it's now doing what it's supposed to do. But as before with the plane, we don't have enough geometry. So I'm going to select the face there, press I to inset, and then press Shift R to repeat that a few times. And finally, right click and poke faces just to fill in the gap there, and shade smooth. So yeah, that works really well. And that's essentially what I did for making the stickers. If you know another way, go ahead and do it that way. As you move the stickers around the object, make sure that you rotate them to face the angle of projection. As I'm doing here, you can see it's flat, whereas we're coming in at an angle. So just make sure you rotate the object and bring it closer to the surface. That will give you a much better result. Just like that. Cool. And with that explained, let's get back to the video. Yes, I know, they're not stupid stickers, they're cool. So, yeah, I started with the plane, I added a circle, and did exactly what I just showed you in the previous steps. I subdivided it several times, so we have some geometry that will wrap nicely around the head parts. I created a stickers collection actually, and selected the head as the target, of course, for the Shrinkwrap modifier. Anyway, let's let this play out. Play around with the offset there. I used snap mode above surface, just so it sits proud of the surface, and change the offset to whatever works for you. Now it really helps to give these a random rotation to make them look a bit more organic and basically how you would stick them on something if you're not being absolutely perfect. So I've duplicated the object there, aligning it with this rear part of the head, and of course change the target to that part there. That's worked great. And duplicate that object again with Shift D. And I'm going to place that along this wheel arch object there. So scale it, rotate it, do what you need to do. And of course, don't forget to change the target for the Shrinkwrap modifier. So at this point, I add a circle. I scale it down, place it where I want it to go, and fill it. Just checking the face orientations. I'll place it somewhere there. Shrinkwrap modifier above surface and give it the value that it needs. So place these wherever you like. Now we've got 4 stickers so far. You can see there that the normals was facing in the wrong direction, so rotate it 180 degrees. It does get a bit trickier if you try to wrap it around a corner, so let's see how this goes. Okay, we'll place it there actually, rather than overlapping the corner, just under the wires there. Be quite nice. So you can see there I've added some more geometry using inset and Shift R to repeat the operation. So again, duplicate that one, rotate it 180, and place that somewhere, or wherever you like. The nice thing about doing it this way is you can add whatever images you like to these stickers, independent of the material of the robot parts. Thanks for watching. Join me in the next episode when we get finally to the text string, and it's going to be amazing. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.